Ancient technologies. Quartz is the poor man's diamond, or ancient man's diamond. So the idea here is the idea of using quartz instead of diamonds, because a lot of times people like to argue that in order to cut granite, you need diamond, like diamond saws, diamond tip drills, and stuff. And it's like, well, that will work, but it's not necessary. You can't use quartz on quartz, right? You can cut quartz with quartz. You can, you can cut granite with granite. You can cut granite with quartz. And I'll show you an image of my quartz. So the one on the top is essentially a chisel, right? And the one on the bottom is essentially a drill, because it's a little bit pointier than the top one is. A little less pointy now because I used it a lot. But you can see I'm able to drill in a hole, not that deep, but obviously if I put more effort, I can get in deeper. That's what she said, into the granite. And as you can see, that's red granite. So of course I have been experimenting. It's not enough to just have an idea, you gotta try it out, right? So you can put red granite, the quartz at the tip of a stick and create a little, I forget what this is called, little flywheel drill right here. You can do the bowl drill. You can do the tube drill thing. People like the tube drill idea. But using quartz, because a lot of people, especially the ones who do the tube drill concept, they don't use quartz. They use sand, which, interesting enough, would have a certain amount of quartz in it. Versus desert sand should have sand. Contains. This is made of microscopic studies of samples. Include calcareous grains, including chalk, limestone, dolomite, marl, and calcite, including other things. All right, but it could also have, especially Egyptian desert sand, could definitely have quartz in it. But the idea is, if it has quartz, obviously it's better abrasive than if it didn't. But I was thinking, not every place that you see megalithic structures and you have sand. Not every megalithic structure is in a desert, right? It's built on mountains and many other places, and bedrock and stuff like that. So clearly sand wouldn't be the number one abrasive for cutting stone. Can it be used? Of course. But it wouldn't be the number one abrasive. As you can see in this image right here, which I took a picture of before making this video, and I drilled that with this piece right here, or by hand. I just twist, and that's all you really need, right? Twist, one direction, twist it away, and keep going back and forth, rotating, and you'll start making a dent, as it were. And if I keep going for a couple minutes to a couple hours, I can get really far in cutting the granite. But the idea is that we don't we don't need to think that sand was the only abrasive they had access to. They had to have access to other things. And I always thought that they had access to gems and stuff, especially when they make jewelry. So of course they know the idea of finding shiny crystals in the ground, and they'll be aware of it. They have knowledge of it, and because they're aware of it and have knowledge of it, they would experiment with it, right? I believe somebody like myself would play around with these things. Even kids like to play around with stuff, and somebody will be watching the kids, right? Hopefully, right? Keep an eye on the kids, keep them safe. Might notice certain things or two, like might notice the kids stacking, rocks, stones on top of each other, rocks on top of each other, and get the idea of making a megalithic structure just based off of seeing kids stacking stone. Another thing is kids hitting rocks on rocks, smashing rocks together and see what happens. Especially if they break a rock and see that there's crystals in it, like a geo stone rock, right? And they're like, oh shit, there's stuff in here. And then they decide to break it more, and it's like, oh, we can use these crystals. Oh, this can cut and scratch stone, and we can do so much. And then just one thing led to another, and it's all just because kids were just being kids. Literally, that's how things could be discovered. Advanced technology can be discovered and learned is through randomness, through childlike curiosity, right? Curiosity is what leads to great innovations anyway. So, like I said, my own curiosity was like, well, I believe they had access to gemstones, especially if they made jewelry. If they don't have access to diamond, okay, let's go with they don't have access to diamond. So I'm like, what would be close though? What would be good enough? What would be the next best thing to diamond? Quartz. But then it's like, okay, did they have quartz? Is there, at least, let's go with Egypt as an example. Do they have access to quartz? Most places you can find quartz, specifically white quartz. The clear kind probably be a little bit harder to find, but definitely the white kind should be, right? So then of course, like I said, with a little, research, right, a little Google search, we check to see if there's any white quartz crystals in Egypt, and there is. There's a crystal mountain in Egypt. And you see some images here of people, a whole bunch of white quartz, all up here in the deserts. Look at all that. Look at all that. Man, that looks beautiful to me. Because of things the monolithic structures I can create with all of that quartz right there. Look at those big chunks. So, as shown in my image, not only do I have this one right here, which is a little pointy, so I used it as a drill. There's this one over here that's kind of already shaped up at the tip, like a chisel. I haven't used it to chisel yet, but that is the goal, is to play around and chisel. Use it as a chisel and carve out some designs on granite. So I do have a red granite piece that has a nice flat surface. So I definitely want to use this chisel, this quartz crystal chisel, I call it, and probably make an eye or something, some type of design, just to show what it can do. As you can see a close up of, oops, take a zoom in further. Close up of the red quartz. Let's see it pulverizing in there. But yes, so quartz, that's the best thing to diamond. And of course, you can crush down quartz, you can cut it and shape it and all this other good stuff. Do a lot of different things to it. Quartz, of course, is piezoelectric, so there's the electricity aspect to it, so it can be used for stuff. The fact that if you apply electricity or voltage to a quartz, it causes them to vibrate. Vibration, shaking, moving. That sounds useful. What would we like to vibrate? That's what she said, right? What would we like to vibrate to make use? Maybe a chisel. Vibrating a chisel to make it into a power chisel, right? Into a sonic chisel, basically. And do some sonic drilling or sonic carving. That sounds like a good idea. So, something I see, I want to mention as well, people tend to have a misconception about the Great Pyramids. Recently just saw somebody comment and argue with somebody that the Great Pyramids is not created with granite. And it's like, well, that's incorrect. It is true. It's not 100% made with granite, but it's also not 100% made with limestone. According to this, the Great Pyramid consists of an estimated 2.3 million blocks. approximately 5.5 million tons of limestone, with 8,000 tons of granite and 500,000 tons of mortar. So those are the three things you have to consider when it comes to the Great Pyramid of Giza. That it's mortared, so it's glued together, as it were. So essentially it's glued together, so that's an important detail to keep in mind. It's more limestone than granite. Granite typically is used on some of the outside, if right on the base, and definitely in the King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber. So the inner corridors, as they say, is the granite is used. So the granite is used on the inside, and some of the outside, or the base at least, of the pyramid. But the rest is just limestones. The rest is just limestone for structural reasoning, right? For structural, so that way they can. Because why build the whole thing with granite, right? That's excessive when you can just use granite for what you need it for, and then for everything else, there's limestone, right? So there's that, right? Another thing to keep in mind is there's some wood, specifically cedar wood, if I'm right, and then there's copper alloy to be exact, in the Great Pyramid of Giza, to be specific. I don't know much about the other pyramids, but the Great Pyramid has those things to keep in mind. So that's a little bit of information about the pyramids you want to keep in mind. But the main thing is there is granite in there. So it's important to know how to cut it, because limestone is a little bit easier cut than granite. So copper chisels can be used easily on limestones than it would be on granite. So that's why, red granite specifically, right? So that's why it's important to know how to cut red granite, right, to be able to work with it. So, with that in mind, working on red granite, we need to figure out the exact abrasive that was used, because I agree that you can cut stone and drill and carve stone with primitive tools, as some people like to say, with copper chisels and hammers. It is possible, because it's not impossible. It's just not likely, because of the fact that it would be smarter to use better materials, better stuff, especially when we know they did have better stuff. We know they traveled. We know they imported things. They exported things. So they definitely was not on an island, right? They were in Africa. They're in Africa, and they can travel to the Middle East, right? And they can travel to Europe and stuff like that, right? European area. They can travel above, and then of course boats is a factor. The point is that they were not secluded, specifically in Egypt, weren't secluded, so they had access to other materials, other things they could use. But as you can see, they do have access to quartz, which literally is on the surface. Literally, there's a mountain of quartz. They can go grab some and use it. You also can create quartz, so that's another thing to keep in mind. So as you can see here in the images, you can literally see there's quartz all over here. You don't even have to go try to dig on the ground to find it. It's already on the surface, so just go grab some. And a lot of them are already loose. Just go grab some and then use it, right? And like I was trying to say, is many places on Earth, quartz, is available. Quartz exists, so it wouldn't be that hard to, find some quartz and then use it, and then make tools with them, right? And use them as chisels, use them as drill bits, which is the main thing I like to talk about and focus on, is using them for that purpose, using them as the main material for creating cutting tools. That you could create lathes and many other things you could do. The point is, this is a really good material that they have access to, and most of us can have access to. I mean, I got my crystals on Amazon, so there you go, right? So it's not that hard to get quartz and be able to use it to cut granite, to be able to do some pretty cool stuff, especially for those who it's too hard to cut granite, you need diamond, all this nonsense. No, quartz. And I'll show it again because I like to show proof as much as I can when I can. There you go. That's my, red granite. That's red granite right there, right? There's quartz crystal. I ain't use no tube drill or sand or water or high-tech advanced alien technology, unless you consider quartz crystal alien tech, right? I'm using something natural, a crystal, and used it to, cause damage to a red granite. So I can carve it, and shape it any way I want, just with something as simple as that, right? And like I said, you can use granite to cut granite. You can use other rocks like diorite or something like that. You can use stuff harder. Yes, you can use diamond, obviously. There's a lot you can use. The whole point is using something harder. That's what she said, right? To put in work. The next step is how much work did they take forever to cut the granite, to drill holes and stuff? Did they use, did they do it by hand, or did they use like a flywheel method, like in this picture, or did they use like a bowstring method? Did it take turns, doing the work by hand? Did they use vibrations, right? Did they use like tuning forks and stuff like that? And have the tuning forks, attach, have at the end of the tuning fork have a quartz crystal attached to it. Did they have a quartz crystal tuning fork? Yeah. Apparently there is quartz crystal tuning forks. Gotta keep that in mind. It'd be cool to own one of those. Get me a nice little cheap quartz crystal tuning fork. Yeah, most of them are pretty expensive, but you get the idea. Well, at least Amazon has it. But you get the idea. Let's see, like I said, you need to understand what you're working with, right? The materials you're working with. If you're working with red granite, what can cut it? Experiment, try different things, and then see which one is the best one, right? And then use it. More likely what the Egyptians, at least the Egyptians did, or any other humans on the planet back in time would have done. They would have experimented, would have tried different things. But my main point would be is, figure out what they used and then work from there. Obviously I gotta test some more. I gotta do some drill cores of my own and stuff like that, and compare them to core 7, right? So I have the folder, and compare it to quartz 7. Like having core 7, right? Compare it to like I said, red quartz, as you can see in the picture, compared to the picture of my sample, as you can see, it's definitely the same material, right? And try to see if we can, get these striations, as they call them, get them close. Because the thing about these scratches, they seem very big, very deep, very thick, and very deep. So that's why it's important to use. They have measurements and stuff like they did. But a lot of times when I see other people, when I see other people's attempt at drilling the core, it's like I think I have pictures of other work here. Unless I put it somewhere else. Okay, this is somebody else's work, right? I'm always willing to, be open-minded to see what other people have to offer. But as you can see here, it doesn't look that good, right? Like, it doesn't look like this. That's important because we're trying to get this end result. So somebody made their own drill core. As you can see, it doesn't look exactly like this. It's tubular shape, just like this is a tubular shape. but look at how deep those lines are, those cuts. And you barely see cuts in here. You see like scratches more than cuts, right? So, we need something that's better than that. And that's the point. It's like, in order to figure out how this was done, we need to get closer to this. Don't have to be exact, just close enough. I believe that they use quartz as opposed to sand. Quartz, something a little bit coarse, right? Something a little thicker, bigger. So I just think they just use bigger chunks of an abrasive. I agree with the abrasiveite concept, but I think they use a much rougher, tougher abrasive. Another possibility is they just had quartz tip. They had like a tuning fork, right? And on the tips of them, it had quartz on it. And then they just spinned it, rotated, right? Spinned it. And that's how they were able to do the circle, right? And be able to make it adjustable and variable so they can make different size holes, which will make it practical, the ability to adjust the width of the diameter of like how big the hole is going to be, right? And then you can always change the quote unquote drill bit, which will be quartz, right? And you can always get more quartz and make more drills out of it. Especially, you can get the most out of it by breaking it into smaller pieces, use them as little drill bits, right? And then work from there. Instead of trying to use a whole big piece, just use bits and pieces, and that'll last you longer. And like I said, you can replace them, use them, replace them, use them, replace them, and be able to drill into granite, and be able to produce really good pieces like you see back here of all these things made of granite. So I guess I'll stop there. See if anything else. But white quartz, I definitely want to try out how much better material that is. If I'm right, I think I do actually have white quartz. I collected a whole bunch of rocks, and I do have like some white shiny rock that I need to double check. It's probably white quartz or some other type of white crystalline type thing. I'll find out. But the thing is at least if it is white quartz, I'll be able to experiment with it. But if not, that's cool. I don't have it there, but let's see. See right here, we got some white quartz here that I can get for like $10 on Amazon. And I'm doing some string stuff like cutting with string and things of that nature, vibration. So vibration stuff is coming soon. That's the end of the video.